Sure thing. Thank you, Emily. Welcome, everybody. I see a few familiar names in the participant list, so great to see some friends and fellow fundraising professionals out there joining in. So this traditionally has always been my toughest presentation to get people to register for. It's what's changing, how do I adapt? We just have this change resistance, but not anymore. In the current reality, we are all forced to change what seems like nonstop. So while this is a standard presentation that I do, it has certainly been updated, and all things COVID and pandemic and how that's impacting are infused within this now. So we are going to do both those long-term trends and how that's changing things, and also in the current reality, how is COVID and the pandemic impacting that. So you're going to get the best of both worlds today. As I said, I usually have to convince people why they need to change, and it's this kind of same old topic we hear, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, or more commonly, this is the way we've always done things. I always put this grumpy man up here, but it's not always a grumpy older gentleman saying it. It can be anybody. We just have this resistance, but if we don't change, then this kind of kicks in. It's the point of diminishing returns, where things are fine, but they start to level off a little bit. And if we keep doing the same thing, we eventually reach that point of negative returns. So that's what we're trying to avoid today. And I'll throw out I've never actually verified that it's an Einstein quote, but that's who it's attributed to usually. So insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So yes, you are forced to change currently, but I hope this is like a lesson. Once we're through all of this, that we're just more open to change and evolving and always looking for that continuous improvement, which I've found is essential to successful fundraising. We always have to be evolving, always have to be thinking, testing, trying new things if we want to take our programs to the next level. So as I mentioned, yes, we are forced to change these days. So we are going to look at some COVID specific items, and I'm going to start off right in the beginning and just kind of get a lot of that out of the way, and then we'll look more at some of those longer term trends. So that is the game plan for today. Briefly, who am I? Emily did plenty on my intro there, so I don't need to tell you much more. I'm a career fundraiser. I've had the honor of doing frontline fundraising work for the organizations you see in the top row there. I'm a certified fundraising executive and a master trainer with the Association of Fundraising Professionals. These days, I spend my time primarily helping small community-based organizations with fundraising training, coaching, through my firm Productive Fundraising, and I have the honor of teaching the fundraising courses at both Temple University and Messiah University. So I said that right. Messiah just switched to a university here a couple months ago, and I've been having a hard time remembering to say that, so got that one. Other things about me, you see it in my company name. I'm just a big productivity nerd. I love to optimize things. I love checklists. I like all that stuff. So you're going to see some of that infused in here, always templates, actionable tips, all that kind of stuff. And it's because I have this really strong belief that raising funds for causes you care about should not mean working 60+ hours per week forever. Right? Sometimes we have to. Maybe those special event weeks, but not always. So there's ways to do things a little more effectively and efficiently that can really help us manage our workflow. So enough about me. We are on Zoom, and we did talk about Q&A. We'll do that at the end. The next question I get are slides. Can I have them? Yes, you may have them. They're already posted. If you go to productivefundraising.com/resources, they are up there. And links to anything I referenced today will also be there as well. And as Emily said, recording this presentation will go on the library's YouTube page once they have a chance to grab that and edit it and post that up there as well. So I think we're good. Let's dig in. What's changing? What should we do about it? As I said, we're going to dig into COVID right away here, talk about it, trends, and just what's going to happen, what has forced us to change, and what's the long-term impact going to be. Well, we have seen this before. We've had major issues that have had an impact on fundraising. Perhaps nothing as big as this, but most notable for me would be like 9/11, the environment after that, kind of the Great Recession, and maybe certain domestic natural disasters, especially like Katrina. While that was localized, there was a major impact there. And major election years certainly have an impact. So we got the double whammy this year of pandemic and a major election. So we've seen big things happen, and we can chart it. When big things happen, it almost always looks like this. So we get a bump, a slump, and a surge. So we certainly saw the bump. There was a surge in emergency giving last spring. Now we are kind of in a slump, but not everyone's in a slump. So that emergency giving's gone away, but we haven't seen a huge dip. So we are acting a little differently than normal. And a lot of it is because the stock market recovered so fast. Giving almost always tracks the stock market, especially those major gifts, because a lot of them are made through gifts of appreciated securities. So I think we're doing this, but it's kind of a faster recovery perhaps, and I'm going to show you some data to prove that here in a little bit. And my hope is that we are going to just stay up and not do another dip, but there's some talk of like a W recovery, so we just have to see what that looks like. But we have really kind of recovered. So here's the preliminary results. Sorry for a lot of words on the page, but I'll go through it here. So in a shift from the first quarter of the year, charitable giving actually increased by almost 7.5% over the first half of 2020 compared to the first half of 2019. And when you look down below, we were actually 6% behind at the end of quarter one. And by the end of quarter two, we were 7.5% ahead. So we had that huge recovery with that surge in giving mid-year. So giving from the first quarter of 2020 was 6% behind the first quarter giving in 2019, and many charities were worried that the data didn't yet show the impact of the pandemic because COVID-19 had not spread significantly by the end of March. So yeah, we were worried, we didn't know what was going to happen, but then that surge came. But a 19.2% increase in smaller donations, less than $250 in the second quarter, was an important driver for this turnaround. The overall number of donors increased by 7.2%, with new donors increasing by 12.6%, showing a renewed increase in interest in supporting nonprofits. So that is huge. As we're going to see later, there's actually been a decrease in the total number of donors in recent years. But this COVID emergency giving actually created this surge, 19.2% increase in smaller donations, which have been slowly declining in recent years. So perhaps that's going to be a bit of a silver lining out of all of this, but we are running ahead. As far as current quarter, quarter three, or previous quarter, quarter three, we don't have those results yet. I would expect to see a dip. Typically in election years, quarter three almost always dips, just uncertainty of election, dollars going to political causes, those kind of things. But giving has remained strong, so we will see. It has changed though. There used to be 3 layers of giving. You know, core causes that we support, obligation causes, things I have to do, other causes, smaller amounts, but now there are the coronavirus causes, you know, those things that are urgent. So it's just this layers of giving, and you know, how do the various layers structure for folks? It's a little different for everybody, but it has kind of opened another area. And will that stay? It may not stay as coronavirus, but are people going to be more open, have a deeper place for preventing something like this in the future? So will they have a anti-pandemic bucket that they use, or a medical research bucket or something like that? It may have a lasting impact that way. So the long-term impact of this and all of these things, we get that influx of first-time donors, especially younger donors will make their first donations because of something like this. Some donors go away, others step up. What usually happens there is fewer donors, but more money. But we're actually seeing more donors and more money, which is a great sign for philanthropy. And that, you know, unfortunately is the truth. Crises teach people to give and give more, and they're actually good for the sector. Long-term growth is typically created out of these crises. So while we don't want them to happen, after the initial recovery period, they tend to be good for the nonprofit sector. What I've seen people struggle the most with through all of this is mindset. Just, is it okay to fundraise? Is now the right time? Should I wait? Oh, what if my donors are sick or have been personally impacted or lost their job? Letting that get in the way just hurts your organization even more. You have to ask, you have to reach out, and you need to fix the mindset. so that you can do that and fix it within your organization. So this was a great quote put out by Stephen Screen this spring. I'm going to read it here. Your donors are amazing and they want to help. Let them decide what is relevant and important to them. Your job is to clearly state how your beneficiaries and your organization are being impacted by this situation and how the donor can help. Share a current need that they can act on. Don't let your unease with asking take away from a donor the chance to make an impact and feel better about the world. That last sentence, that's so key. Don't let your unease take away from your donors the opportunity to make an impact. You know, they might not be impacted at all. Maybe they can't volunteer, they can't do their normal things. They're at home feeling kind of helpless. Giving is a way that they can help. So fix your mindset. Other things COVID has caused problems with, for sure, those fundraising events, you know. And this is what I've been saying all along. I've just updated that date at the top about 3 times now. I'm currently saying before fall 2021. I think, you know, the earliest we might see in-person events would probably be this spring, but you know, that's really, really risky. Summer, hopefully we can have a summer like this past summer, if not even better. You know, some of the vaccine rollouts looking promising, but we have to wait and see. And you can't put your organization's fundraising plan or goals as this tentative, wishful event. So, you know, I think before next fall and maybe even before 2022, your options are the same they've been all along. Cancel, but try to keep the money, postpone, or go virtual. My least favorite on here is postpone. It's going to be a very crowded, either late 2021 or whenever events happen again. You know, everybody's going to want to do one right away. There's just going to be donor fatigue. Folks aren't going to go to a nonprofit event every night of the week. It's going to be hard to get space. It's just kind of risky there. And I still question, you know, even if we're allowed, will folks be comfortable in crowds? Will they want to be in crowds? Or is this changing behavior beyond that? Your other options obviously are go virtual, which is not as easy as it sounds. I like to say you're kind of producing a 30-minute television show. It's got to be entertaining. It can't just be talking heads on Zoom. So my favorite is to cancel, but to try to keep the money. So approaching folks and saying, you know, we're unable to do our events currently, but would you do your normal sponsorship as a straight donation to our cause because you care so deeply? Would you do your normal ticket price as a straight donation? So you actually come out ahead because you don't have those hard costs, but you have that normal revenue. Folks have been very receptive to that. Companies that aren't impacted see the need to support their normal nonprofits this way, and so do individuals. So that's there. Also on those virtual events, the sponsorships. If you're going to do a virtual event, don't downplay the opportunity. It's actually a more attractive opportunity to sponsors than an in-person event because you have a broader reach. Online, you can have, you know, if you're live streaming something, it can just really expand. It can be recorded, all that's there. It's not just the 200-300 people in the room anymore. So don't discount it. Use technology to provide even more value. You can play their videos, their spots, you know, easily. You don't have to spend $3,000 on video tech for the room. It's all built in there. Make it a part of something bigger. That year-round partnership versus a one-day sponsorship is really key. And recognize that, you know, these virtual events are probably here to stay. How will you integrate them? Can you create a virtual or an online component to your in-person event down the line? But I think this is going to change behavior and change donor expectations as we go forward. Okay, if you want more on COVID and specifically like how to fundraise now, messaging, how do I be sensitive? Back in the spring when everything dried up, I was no longer traveling to do fundraising conferences and you know, consulting work. Everything was paused. I spent my time doing a series of about 33 of these little 20-minute webinars I did on how to fundraise in the time of COVID-19. So I have a recording of that that you can see on the resources page. I know a few of you joined me for those back then, but if you're still struggling with that or want a refresher, I encourage you to check that out. Okay, so we are going to move away from COVID and look more at bigger trend items. However, I'll still mention, you know, when the current pandemic is impacting one of those areas as we go through. So looking long-term, the long-term trend, giving is growing and the growth is accelerating. So we've had good news in recent years. Last year in 2019, total giving in the US was $449 billion. This comes out through Giving USA. It's a big study done each year, $449 billion, and it was a dramatic acceleration in giving. The previous year's growth had been 0.7%, which was actually below inflation. It was still growth, but really not when you took that into account. But last year, the acceleration increased to 4.2%. So a good growth in giving, primarily driven by strong stock market. Anytime we have a surging stock market, giving almost always follows suit. Where does that come from? Well, it continues to come from individuals. 77.6% of all giving comes from individuals. Only 4% from corporations, 17% from foundations. So focusing our time on that individual side is essential. That's where the bulk of the dollars are. Individuals give the most. I like to really talk about allocating as much staff time, as much of our work we do to face-to-face relationship building, because that's how individual dollars are accessed. People give to people. People give to people they know, like, and trust. Obviously, face-to-face is really hard right now, but Zoom donor meetings are happening. Just like everything else is happening on Zoom. Zoom donor meetings are there, phone calls, emails. Donors are more open to contact right now than ever. They're home, they have more time. We can't do our normal social activities. We're craving that social interaction. So especially now that the election robocalls are over, people are open to answering a phone call from somebody, a number they don't recognize, or an organization they know. So reaching out, really essential. Fundraising should look like this. Can't look like that right now, but if you put some Zoom boxes around these people, it can still look like that. We can still have that interaction. So giving is growing from primarily individuals. The full implications of the 2018 tax law changes are still unknown, but coming into focus. So back in 2018, we had the dramatic increase in the standard deduction to the point that not as many people, a lot fewer people could itemize. So, but giving still increased in both 2018 and 2019. So that was a promising sign. 2019 was expected to show a larger impact since donors had filed their taxes for the first time under the new rules. These rules came in, people saw the changes in tax brackets and things, but a lot of people didn't realize that they could no longer itemize their charitable donations until they went to file their taxes and their accountant told them, or TurboTax told them, hey, these don't count. So we were afraid, that would that change their behavior once they had that experience. So looking forward, so giving did increase, so we weren't, as concerned, but the number of donors decreased, as I talked about before. So the thought is that a lot of those smaller donors who could no longer itemize, may have limited their giving, may have cut down on the number of organizations, and really just did those larger donations of their core organizations that they like to support. So that decrease had to be attributed to the change in tax law since we had good economic conditions at the time. So it does have an impact, but it's primarily with the smaller donors. So what do we think we might see moving forward? Well, I've seen multiple presentations by financial planners, wealth managers, who talk about encouraging their clients to bundle their donations. So if somebody, is close to being able to itemize, or maybe at least halfway there, they're encouraging them to bundle donations into 1 year. So this would be where maybe they would make their normal charitable donations in January. And then instead of waiting until the next January, they would do it in December of the same year. So 11 months apart rather than 12. It's only 1 month off, so it doesn't really cause a cash flow problem for them, but they can get double the donations in 1 year, get over that itemizing threshold, and get that benefit. On the nonprofit side, that's going to make our records look weird, because it's going to look like they're giving double in 1 year and then they're lapsing in another year. So we need to be really careful if people are doing this to not, treat them like a lapsed donor, because they're still a very generous donor, probably. We just need to maybe have more flexibility. I always recommend looking at current donors as anybody that's given in the last 18 months rather than 12. It's just got that 6 month buffer. Folks really don't remember when they last gave, so that's always a little bit safer. What can you do here? Advocate for the universal charitable deduction. Make it so we can always deduct our donations. We've had it a few times, certain years on and off, but it always seems to come and go. It's always sunset legislation. So something we can always do in the sector. Yes, we can advocate, we can lobby, we just can't endorse candidates. So always be looking to forward that. CARES Act giving incentives. So we do have a mini universal charitable deduction this year. Every household, and I have verified it's household, not individual. So if it's a household where it's married filing jointly, it's one deduction of $300, not $300 each. So every household, every tax return can deduct $300, whether they itemize or not. Donors won't know this. It was kind of a small provision of the CARES Act. You can tell them. Something you can reach out, maybe in your year-end email blast, great little thing to put in there. You can deduct $300, won't you do it through a donation to our organization? On the corporate side, they had a dramatic increase. The annual limit increased from 10 to 25% of taxable income. You know, I know a lot of organizations are hurting, especially maybe in the travel or hospitality realms, but there are companies doing great in all of this. You know, think, you know, healthcare, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, household goods, grocery stores. You know, there are lots of areas that are just fine, and they might be looking to do a lot more, knowing that a lot of our nonprofit causes are hurting and have bigger needs this year. So we can approach them. As I've said, the total number of donors is decreasing, or maybe I should now say was decreasing, because we had that surge there this year. Maybe this trend is going to reverse a bit. But they had actually decreased by 4.5% from, let's see, that would have been 2017 to 2018 is the last time this report was run. So still seeing that shrinking until perhaps this year. So keeping an eye on that, you know, what can we do if that donor pool is going to continually shrink? That decrease has also not been evenly weighted. There's been a greater decline among donors giving small to medium-sized gifts. So it's that exact group that really stepped up with emergency response this year. So major gifts have continued to propel total giving higher. It's been happening more and more. The major donors, a smaller pool of donors, gives more to drive giving higher. And new donors disproportionately come from the pool of supporters already donating to other organizations. So they're new donors to you, but they're not new donors. It's not people coming and making their first donation to a nonprofit through, they're more likely, you know, they heard about you or saw you, they're already philanthropic and they're just adding you to their list. So what do we do about it? Well, we need to do more of this. We need to grow and deepen those relationships with our individuals, because we have fewer and we need them to give more. So we need to deepen that relationship and focus on it. So I recommend visit goals. You know, what gets measured gets managed. So not just a dollar raised goal, but visit goals. Can we meet or contact goals? Can we contact 5 major donors a month with some kind of personal contact? Not sending them our newsletter, not our email blasts, actually personally reaching out, phone, Zoom, you know, socially distanced outside, waving, whatever it is. But can we do that? That sets us down the right path for deepening those relationships. Something else I recommend, and I realize it's a little difficult now, but we can kind of do some planning for the future, is partnering with other nonprofits. Partnering with other nonprofits to do something together. You know, if that donor pool is shrinking, and our new donors are not really coming from the sidelines, they're coming from other nonprofits, you know, getting to know the donors of another nonprofit makes a lot of sense. So I like to encourage this with something kind of completely not complimentary, you know, not a, if you're in healthcare, not another healthcare nonprofit, but maybe like something environmental. You know, if you're in education, something either, you know, healthcare, or human services, the arts, you know, something that's going to have a different donor pool. Do something together. My favorite was always kind of like a after work, you know, networking session, happy hour, something like that. Just getting people together. You know, frequently, especially with our corporate sponsors, they're always looking for networking opportunities, but they don't want to go to a networking opportunity where, you know, it's going to be like the junior sales force trying to sell to the junior sales force and nobody can do anything. They want to go to something with like executive level networking. I've always had a great success with those in my career. And when you're bringing 2 audiences together, that's even more attractive because it's not going to be the same old crowd. or maybe we do a rotating mix of bringing different folks together. But, you know, it's simple, some kind of simple event. I've seen breakfast, all kinds of different things. You talk about each organization for 5 minutes in the middle, and that's really it. You're just spreading the word, trying to see who's interested, and then you can do some follow-up after the event. But partnering, you know, network and collaborate with other organizations. Find those other pockets of donors in your community that might not currently know about you. Donor retention, it's still horrible. It's still horrible. We're still not good at keeping our donors. We're still stuck at 45%. Thankfully, we're no longer dipping, but we've been stuck at 45% for a while. So let me dig in. Donor retention, 45%. That means if we had 100 donors in year one, at the end of year two, we will only have 45 of those same donors. So thankfully, most small community-based nonprofits, the groups that I work with, the groups that primarily I assume most of you are from, typically do a bit better, usually in the high 50s, low 60s, but it can be a lot better. I've seen it get up into the mid 80s. So you can do better. How do you do better? Thank your donors. Show your donors you care. Show your donors that they are more than just a dollar sign to your organization. They're not just filling the piggy bank. You actually want a partnership. How do you do that? Love, donor love. Show your donors, make them feel loved by your organization. It's those little things that we do. Many of you, if you've seen me present before, I'll almost always talk about the fundraising law of 7. Fundraising law of 7 comes down to research done by Penelope Burke, where she studied 40,000 households in the US and Canada, looking to answer the question, what do we need to do so that donors feel appreciated and not over-solicited? And she came up with this number of we need to reach out 7 times between asks, just giving them information, checking on them, sharing the impact of their work before we re-solicit them. So they're called touch points, 7 touch points. How many do you do? Have you looked at that? Have you looked at that recently? Have you refreshed your list of touch points? I don't have time to go deeply into it today, but I do have a list of about 35 suggested donor touch points. If you need to refresh them or expand the number in your organization, that's on the resources page. And you can grab that and take a look at what can you do to boost donor retention. Maybe we can add a few more things in here. Another thing you can do to dramatically help with donor retention is automate it. Automate it. So if you convert your normal donors from a one-time annual donor, you send something, they send a check back, to monthly giving, you can increase it to 85%. So if somebody signed up for automatic monthly giving to your organization, the retention rate for those donors is 85%. It just keeps happening, right? Until the credit card expires, until they say stop, it's on autopilot. So that's a huge way you can help fundraising at your organization. It gets even better. Recurring monthly donors give 42% more than regular donors over the course of a year. 42% more. You know, think about it. If somebody gives you, maybe $50 at the end of the year, they'd probably give you 10 a month. It's not that different as far as their budgeting, but over the course of the year, that's going to add up to $120, not just 50. So it can be a lot more with those recurring amounts. And 45% of all donors are already enrolled in a monthly giving program. A lot of people say, my donors won't do this. They're not going to sign up. Almost half of your donors already are, especially members of faith communities. This has been rolled out there with tithing and other things a long, long time ago. So they've been doing it, probably a solid 10 years there. They wanted to automate that. So, but even, groups give frequently this way. Almost everybody signed up for some kind of subscription service, and giving, folks are open to it. We just have to ask. How do you do that? People give to people. So it's not an email blast. It's not just a page on our website. It's a personal request to do so. I call it a win-win letter, where you explain what's good for them and what's good for the organization. You ask them to do it. It's personalized. It's signed. It has a little note on it. Maybe it comes in a hand-addressed envelope. It's a personal request from me to you, not some mass thing. People give to people. So I have an example of one of those letters on the resources page for you as well. All right, let's move on there. But monthly giving, huge trend. A lot of people are doing it. Needs to be a focus going forward. And guess what? Organizations that had a strong monthly giving program, they were not hurting back in April and May. Those dollars just kept coming. They were able to take their COVID appeals, put it on top of that, and have even stronger fundraising than ever in order to respond to the increased need in their community with the clients they serve. So online giving continues to grow slowly. Online giving was supposed to surpass direct mail like 10 years ago. So that didn't happen. I'm not sure it will ever happen. Maybe 20, 30, 40 years from now, it'll get there, but it's going to take a long time. But it is growing. So 8.7% of all giving is given online, and it's growing at about 12% per year. So it keeps inching up, inching up. Are we prepared for that? What's it look like? Monthly giving, which we just talked about, now accounts for approximately 18% of all online giving. So of that 8.7%, 18% of that is monthly. What's that mix like at your organization? Is 18% of all your online giving monthly? If not, you're missing out. People will do this. And 21% of all giving happens on a cell phone. People give on a cell phone. So my question to you is, have you ever checked out your online giving form on a cell phone? What's that experience like? I encourage you, when we're done here today, do it. Make a $5 donation to your organization using your cell phone. See if you're ready to throw your cell phone out the window or if it's smooth. Make that experience good. If there's any kind of hiccups or problems there, something's not on the screen right, people are going to stop. Maybe you're losing 21% of potential gifts that could come online simply because you don't have a mobile optimized website or giving form. A lot of organizations have mobile optimized websites. WordPress and other things just work well there, but usually we're adding on some functionality to do online giving, PayPal, something from our database, and they're not always set up that way. So I encourage you to check that out. More and more online giving is video driven. Video is the huge thing in social, and it's not polished video, it's authentic video, authenticity. We all walk around with these high resolution video cameras in our pocket, in our handbags all the time, simply looking at the screen, talking with something going on behind you, a program or something, thanks so much, we couldn't do this without you. Those kind of things, that is key. Address donors by name, personalized video, something like that can be great. That can be a great call to action to get them to give. Direct mail is not dead. As we already said, I've been in countless fundraising conferences where there's a session on how online giving is going to overtake direct mail. They seem to have finally gone away. I think people are realizing it's just not going to happen. People like to give online or by mail. So, and let me tell you a little bit about how I give, because I think it shows something else we need to do. So I personally, I make all my donations online, but not because of your emails. I get too many emails. They actually skip my inbox. They go right to a newsletter file. Once a week, I skim it for anything that looks a little interesting, but for the most part, I don't read it. If I have time, I'll go in there because I'm looking for impact stories from you. But for the most part, I don't. So to get my attention, you got to send me something in the mail, because I do everything online. I pay all my bills online. There's not much in my mailbox, especially now that the election's over. Okay? So you get my attention in there. I read your appeal. I read your newsletter. I want to give. That goes in my bills to pay file, but I don't send you my check. I don't send that envelope in. It's just my reminder, because I'm going to go to your website and I'm going to give there. I don't write checks. But if you have a little checkbox that says, make this a monthly donation, I'm going to do that too, because then I don't have to worry about it again. It's automated. I love that. I'm a productivity nerd, all right? We love to automate things. So how do I show up for you? I show up as an online monthly donor. So I went to your website and enrolled in monthly giving. You think your emails did it, but they didn't. Your direct mail did it. So this shows the need for multi-channel. We have to do multi-channel. We can't just completely eliminate our newsletter, print newsletter, and send everything on email because it's cheaper. People might not read that. And what goes in there? What made me give? What inspired me? Stories. I can't do a fundraising presentation and not talk about stories. And if I can get the shameless photo of me with the kids in there, I will do that. That's many moons ago. They are much bigger kids now, but I love that photo. But what am I doing? I'm sharing a classic tale, a story that we tell over and over, every Christmas Eve here. We communicate, we relate, we celebrate through story. So that's what we need to do in our appeals and all of our communications. Don't send me something that says, on behalf of the board of directors of ABC Nonprofit, we are reaching out to you to tell you about the great success we've had in the community and meeting our goals. No, it's boring. Tell me a story. Tell me a story about one person, place, or thing, one person whose life was changed because of your organization. And paint that picture, that rich detail, a solvable problem, something my support can change, not world hunger, not the 3,000 underfed children in our community. No, one family, something doable. And don't forget who's the hero of that story. Me, the donor. I'm the hero. I'm the hero. So it's that you language. Always talking about this. Without you, this would not be possible. Not we did this, we did that. It's you, the donor. Because of your support, Johnny has a safe place to sleep tonight. This is really essential because donors are increasingly loyal to causes, not organizations. Causes. So in past generations, past times, 20, 30 years ago, I might give to an organization, the homeless shelter in our town, because that was the right thing to do. But now people are less focused on supporting that one organization as much as they are the cause. So I'm going to give to homelessness, not the homeless shelter. The homeless shelter is doing a good job. I like them. They might get some. But if this group of churches is doing something over here that's addressing it, and maybe especially if they're being more innovative or efficient with it, I might support them as well. So causes, not organizations. So you need to tell the stories about the people that your donors help rather than stories about your organization. That's the cause. That's what will keep them around. It doesn't matter if they don't open it. Always say it. It doesn't matter if they don't open it. What's the most effective way to get somebody to open anything? Right there. It's the most effective fundraising envelope ever. A simple, standard envelope with a reply address, with a real stamp and a handwritten address. It looks like personal correspondence, and it is, because what's in there, you're going to personalize it. You're going to first name, a little note, hand signed. That's how we get donors to act through the mail. Can you do this with everything? Probably not. Can you do it with the top 10% of your donors? Can you have a volunteer help you with this? For sure. It's a great pandemic volunteer task. Drop off a pack of envelopes and the mailing list and just have people hand address things and do notes and all of that. They can send it out right from their house. It takes a little bit of coordination, but it makes a difference, especially now. You can't just switch your mailed newsletter to digital. I see this all the time. Organizations, they got a MailChimp account, got Constant Contact, they finally got that approved, they start doing it, and then they look to reduce that cost by getting rid of the mailed newsletter. You already heard me talk about multi-channel and how I give. Do you know the open rate on your e-blast, your digital newsletter? The average is 15%. 15% is the average open rate. If you're doing really good, you're probably only in the 30s. Right now, some groups are getting up into the 40s just because people are opening more stuff, they have more time, but still, you're not even reaching half of your donors each time. Mail, while they might not read it, they still have the experience of getting it out of the mailbox, seeing what it is, seeing your organization's name and saying, oh yeah, I like that organization. I support them, they're great. Toss. That's fine, that's all I needed to do. With an email blast, they might just skip their inbox like it does for me. I don't even see half those newsletters. Can't just be digital, have to be multi-channel. Okay, we're starting to wrap up here. Postal changes continue to keep us on our feet. We are in, this is actually a local presentation, so I can tell a local story, but I'm sure you all saw the news of the trucks lined up outside the Crooked Hill post office there above Harrisburg, of taking hours to unload things. Yes, a lot of that was fueled by election mail, but there's just been a slew of problems. There were problems even before this year. Last year, and the year before, both, we had slower delivery in Q4, and more problematic for me was batch delivery. So especially with nonprofit standard mail, so our discounted mail, they weren't delivering it every day. So they would deliver it maybe on Monday and Friday. So what that did is our appeal letter would arrive at the same time as about 5 others that same day. And isn't that a recipe for donor overwhelm? You get 5 solicitation letters in one day. Where are those all going to go? Really right in the trash can as well. So that's a problem. And then this year, we saw the pandemic cuts and we were making some changes, got all politicized, had the election influx. So it's just a lot of questions. I've been encouraging clients to drop their year-end appeal 2 weeks early. So that probably means like about today. So if yours isn't ready to go, I would really prioritize that. The sweet spot for direct mail letters hitting is kind of like that first week of December. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how delivery goes this year. I'm hopeful that the increased capacity to deal with the election mail and that going away, hopefully that capacity is still there to deal with our year-end appeal. But there's going to be a lot more mail this year because people can't see each other as well. So who knows? How do you fix it too? Use those first-class stamps for the top of your list. The people that give you to you generously and loyally, make sure they get it when you want them to have it. A first-class stamp should still work and keep you in control. Phone fundraising. Occasionally I get a question, well, should I do a telethon or phone? No, phone fundraising is almost done. Even like higher education, I started my career in phonathons. I was a phonathon caller at my college, the great Slippery Rock University in Western PA. And I started my career actually at Dickinson in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, working for student phonathons. I was the coordinator there. So I have a special place in my heart for phone fundraising, and even I say don't do it. Stanford has canceled their calling program. Colleges are typically the only place where it still exists a little bit, where somebody wants that experience of speaking with a current student to hear what's really going on, not just what the organization is telling them. But phone fundraising, I don't recommend doing it, but phone is still a great tool for stewardship, right? Call and say thank you, even if you don't speak to them. Simply leaving a message with a script like this, I'm calling today to thank you for your recent donation. It means so much, and we wanted to tell you personally how grateful we are. Just have that little conversation, leave that message. It has a huge impact. I don't put a stat up here because I've seen all kinds of studies, but it's anywhere from a 22% to a 43% increase in retention rate right there if they get a call from the organization within 60 days of making their donation. Huge impact. And the best people to make these calls, board members. Board members are volunteers. And it's just kind of, oh my gosh, a board member is taking time out of their day to reach out to me. I only gave $100. Wow, this must be really important to them. Maybe I should give more, that kind of thing. But that is key. Reach out, use that phone. If you want a copy of my script for board members, and especially with board members, give them a script, because they'll say, oh, I wouldn't know what to say, right? So just give them a script, make it easier, make it more comfortable. Can your board members make 5 calls each every month? Sure. These are actually fun experiences. These great little conversations, they tend to be motivating. Hear this and inspires, there's additional support. So do that. Micro projects are the new big thing. Micro projects. So what is a micro project? So essentially, instead of fundraising for our annual fund or our big goal of, maybe we need $150,000 this year, instead of doing that, we're going to break it up into little pieces. They're all going to fit together to be that $150,000, but we're going to talk about little things. So our after school program, our mentoring, online mentoring pairings, whatever it is, almost like our programs, but we can go even smaller, like the piece of equipment we need to make this work. So we just break it apart into these little micro projects. So we're going to do like little mini fundraising campaigns throughout the year, rather than one big one all for the same thing. So why this is working is it kind of matches the current giving climate, which favors more frequent, smaller donations. Been seeing more and more of that. And it also works, there's something kind of with donor psychology here that, my $250 out of 5,000 is a much bigger impact than, my $1,000 out of 250,000. So, if I do 4 $250 donations a year, that's going to be much more, get you closer to where you're going. So it's similar to crowdfunding, which has been growing in big popularity, people funding a portion of something. And younger generations are less likely to make unrestricted gifts, but they will do this because they know exactly where their funds are going. So if you're looking to attract a younger generation, maybe some targeted micro campaigns could be a way to do it. I always say look for sexy things already in the operating budget. So, not our janitorial supplies, but like that new piece of equipment or something, we're planning to do it anyway. That's the key here. This is not additional stuff like off the wish list. It's stuff we need to do anyway. We're just talking about the various components that might be attractive to donors. And it's in the operating budget. So this ends up being unrestricted revenue. It only becomes restricted revenue if we actually raise more than we're looking to. So micro projects could be an answer, could be a way to mix up your fundraising. And my trick here, my favorite thing to do is if you're going to do a micro project, you're going to have this targeted awareness campaign about it, add a corporate sponsor to each mini campaign, right? They're going to get some publicity as you're talking and marketing, and then you already have a head start on the fundraising because you have that sponsorship revenue. Right now, there are companies that are sitting on marketing dollars they don't know what to do with. The trade shows aren't there. I had some marketing people tell me, they're under pressure from their boss to spend their budget and they just don't know how to do it. All the traditional ways aren't there. So reach out, do some micro campaigns, get a sponsor. Good work. A few final things to think about. Kind of some up and coming trends. I'm questioning, is this temporary or permanent? But other things that we've been hearing about. This sense of appealing to a younger audience. Everybody's always trying, oh, my donors are getting older. How do I attract a younger audience? I'm not that concerned about it. I mean, our donors are always going to be older. When do you have the most money to give to causes you care about? Later in life, after you've earned your wealth. So it's always going to be the case. So yes, engaging a younger audience, letting them know about us while they're younger, I think that's worthwhile, but trying to switch our donor base and make it younger as a whole, I think that's kind of, wasted effort. Election year impact on giving. So we will have to see how that turns out. We should have Q3 results coming before too long. I get most of my results through something called the Fundraising Effectiveness Project. If you Google that, you can see that they released a quarterly report through, it's a collaboration between the Association of Fundraising Professionals and around 10 of the largest fundraising database companies. So we'll see what's going on there. Effective altruism. Effective altruism. This is one that I hope doesn't catch on. I don't love effective altruism, but essentially what they do is pick a cause, and then rather than look for the organization they care the most or having the most impact with folks, they simply look at numbers. And they simply look at efficiency. They have these various metrics. A computer crunches the numbers, and then their money goes there. So it's coming out of like a Silicon Valley tech executive movement, but there are some people that give this way, clearly like giving by algorithm. So let's hope not, because I certainly love to tell stories far more than I love appealing to an algorithm. And virtual events, right? Lots of them happened this year. Is that permanent? I know many organizations that did better with their virtual event than they did with their in-person. Because that expense was way lower. There's still expense. You need some professional video help, a few other things, some good, really good software. You need to do an investment, but you're not buying, $50 meals at the country club. Could it be a fit? Could we rotate between virtual and non-virtual in other years, or one of each year? I don't know. We'll have to see. What does that look like moving forward? And then 2, our gamers. Live streams. There have been some amazing virtual live stream gaming fundraisers out there where people are raising, getting close to $1 million with some of these most popular gamers. I have tween boys. It's who they watch. They are into these people. I don't know who they are, but occasionally they'll do something and, put a cause behind it, and they really raise a ton of awareness. So the platform they frequently use is called Twitch. So if you hear Twitch and live streams and gamers, it's maybe not so much of a trend as it is something becoming a little more permanent. And here in Dauphin County, Harrisburg area, we actually have one of the biggest centers for this with Harrisburg University. They actually have a competitive gaming team and great education in that regard. So perhaps a live stream Twitch center here. So something to keep an eye on as well. So these are some up and coming things, or things that, you know, I'm hoping don't become up and coming, but just to keep your eye on as well while we look at some of these fundraising trends. That is it for today. Those are the trends I have to talk about, what's going on in fundraising, what's changing, and what you should do about it. A few more ways to get additional information and ongoing education from me. I go by Fundraiser Chad on all of the social channels, so I encourage you to check me out there. I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook. If you just type in Fundraiser Chad, and either of those should pop right up. As I said, I work through my firm, Productive Fundraising, where we do primarily coaching, training, have an online fundraising certificate through Temple University, and you know, capital campaigns, and love to do things like this. So that's what I do. I have tons of additional resources for you on my website. I have a weekly e-blast that contains 1 or 2 tips and links to upcoming webinars, those kind of things, and a free resource library. And I just had a wonderful intern. Thank you, Audrey. Audrey's a senior at Messiah University. There, I did it again, Messiah University. And she completely revamped my free fundraising resource library this semester. So if you haven't been on there in a while, check it out. Tons of great stuff in there. And if you are in a small nonprofit and don't have anyone to talk shop with and want that, just somebody to say, hey, have you ever thought of this? Has anyone tried this? Do you have a vendor for that? Most of the groups I work with are in that shape. So I put together a private Facebook group. It's called the Fundraising Buzz Fest. And it's just a place for us to talk shop. It actually has nearly 550 members now. And the sign up sheet for that is on the resources page as well, if you'd like to just have a place to talk about fundraising. Finally, I do a free monthly webinar as well, each and every month. And my one for November is coming up very quickly on Monday. And Monday, we're going to dig into fundraising planning. So, you know, not a 30-page fundraising plan with all this, but a streamlined, simplified, productivity nerd version of a fundraising plan. So I'm going to go over some pitfalls and pointers, some ways you can do that more effectively and efficiently. So that's Monday at 1 p.m. And the sign up for that is on the resources page. Even if you can't make it Monday at 1 p.m., if you sign up, then you'll get the recording sent to you automatically. So, all right, I have talked plenty, so we're going to open it up for questions. We have a couple minutes left here, and happy to hear if any of you have questions about any of these trends or other things you're seeing in the community. Okay, I are starting to get some questions in the chat as well, so I'll address those as they come in here. Okay, Megan asks, following COVID and the glut of information people get slammed with on social media, do you have any recommendations for social media fundraising in general, such as maybe where you see more success between different social media platforms? Yes, I do. The key for me is it's not what you want, what platform you want, or what platform people say is good. It's where are your donors? Where do your donors hang out? So knowing who your donor is, who's your average donor? The average donor in the US is a 62-year-old college-educated female. So maybe that's your starting point. Where do you skew from that? But where do they hang out? I can tell you if that's your average donor, it's probably going to be Facebook. So it's not where you want to be, it's where are your donors. What's going on now? What works currently? I mean, I talked video. Video works really well for all the algorithms, any channel, they're going to give that the most play. And yeah, it's noisy right now, but people are on there more than usual too. So, and really just uplifting. You know, we just need good news. We need uplifting things. We need to know the organizations we care about are doing good work out there, not more doom. You know, we've heard the term doom scrolling. There's plenty of bad news out there. What can we do to lift up our donors and still show them some love? My recommendation too with social media, my favorite nonprofit social media guru is Julia Campbell. Julia Campbell, she runs JC Social Marketing. incredibly prolific of putting out great information, has really good blog, webinars. She does great stuff. So I think it's just jcsocialmarketing.com, but check out Julia for all things social media. So, all right, Mitzi. Okay, thank you, Mitzi, for the shout out in the chat. Always great to see you on here. So, micro projects. How is donation for a piece of equipment unrestricted? All right, this depends on accounting at your organization. So I'm simply saying if you're taking something in the operating budget, so something that's already budgeted for, and you're going to do a micro project for that, you're essentially still raising money for the operating budget. Where it would not be unrestricted is if you raise more than that, then they think it's going for equipment. So you would need to purchase additional equipment or something like that. Like I said, it all depends on your budgeting, how it works in your organization, but I do know that some organizations do that with micro projects. They take the operating budget, they might pull a couple things out and do mini campaigns for it to raise money for those specific dollars, but it's in the operating budget, so that's going right back in there. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I'm not an accountant, I just know that that is done at some places. So, okay. That's the questions in the chat. So I'll pause for just another minute here to see if anything comes out. But I simply want to say thank you to all of you for the work you do in our community. I am a local. If you don't know me, I am a local resident. Did all of my initial fundraising work right here in Central Pennsylvania. So I thank you for serving the organizations in our community and helping to make it stronger and a better place to live, work, and play. So. With that, I'll toss it back to you, Emily, to see if you have any final comments, and then we will be on with our days.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chad, for being with us today, and thank you everyone for joining us for this program. We'll be sending out a link next week with the recording of this program and links to the resources that Chad shared as well. But otherwise, I've got nothing more on my end other than to thank you all again so much. We really appreciate it.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Have a wonderful day.